Okay.
You got my video now or no?
Yeah, I see you, Todd.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little dark, but okay.
Well, look to do that.
Well, that helped a lot. Turn it over to your left a little bit more, Todd. Can you? The camera?
I can't. As far as I got to go, I'll
That's good. That's good right there. Perfect.
That's a nice profile right there.
Yeah. Good-looking guy, Todd.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you any different. Okay.
Look at
that.
Amy.
Well, you're my mentor, Ron. So.
And that light overhead, it makes you look like you have an idea, so that's even better. So, anyway, that's... Hello, everybody, and welcome to Encounters USA with author Matthew Hines. If you're looking for alien incidents, Bigfoot brouhahas, or dogman dealings, we have the podcast interviews, field research, and field interviews you're gonna love. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and check us out on Patreon. Now, on with the show. Do people who have not seen Bigfoot have anything to add to the Bigfoot question? Tonight we're going to be looking at that question, and the reason we're going to be looking at that question is because of one of our guests that was on previously, where we mentioned the fact that I was attending a Bigfoot conference. And there were some suggestions made that there were things happening at these conferences that were really not conducive to people who had experienced Bigfoot. And this person, being a Bigfoot experiencer, had some objections with Bigfoot conferences. And right now I'm just going to tell you, that's all I know, and that's the best guess I have, is because I had Jay Birch, who is an actual Bigfoot experiencer, on my podcast, and he has expressed a couple of times kind of a almost contentment about the way the Bigfoot question is being looked at. So tonight, I have a panel of 4 distinguished guests. And I would just like to say thank you, first of all, as a group, for being on Encounters USA.
Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really an honor. And right now, we're just going to very quickly go over our panel because I think you're going to be very impressed with some of the names here. So let's start with our first panelist, and that is Amy Boo. Amy, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am from Northeastern Ohio. I am a teacher, and I am also an editor and proofreader, do a bunch of stuff. And I head up the Bigfoot, I don't know if you want to call us a research group or what, but it's called Project Zoo Book. I'm the co-founder of that. And we have quite a few scientists on board with us alongside some Bigfoot researchers. And I know we had a whole big discussion about that, so I don't want to go too far into it, but I look at Bigfoot from the viewpoint that it's a possible primate. As everyone says, nobody knows for sure, but that's how I look at it. I'm also a member of the Olympic Project and my own little project called Amy's Bucket List Expeditions. Thank you for having me.
All right. And Amy, that was the perfect introduction because we do have 4 panelists, and of course, time is going to be a little bit limited. The next person I would like to talk to and welcome to the podcast is Todd Neiss. Todd, welcome to the podcast. You're actually out driving, so thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. I'm Todd Neiss. I am a retired Army Staff Sergeant, and I bring that up only in light of an encounter I experienced in 1993. I won't go into detail, but I will go as far to say that I've been researching the the Bigfoot phenomena ever since. I'm the president and founder of the American Primate Conservancy, and alongside my wife, Diane. And it's been a very, very amazing journey.
Yeah, and I got to say, Todd, tonight you're really going the extra mile for Encounters USA and Bigfoot, if anybody picks up on that. So the next person I'd like to welcome is Ron Morehead. Ron, author of, I believe it's Voices in the Wilderness. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And don't forget Quantum Bigfoot.
That's correct also.
All right, Ron.
I got them both.
Oh, yeah,
Well, thank you. That's good.
it's a great honor.
Oh, good for me. Good for me.
Great honor for you to take time out and be on the podcast, because your contributions are going to be very welcome. And finally, we have Mr. Jay Birch. Jay, you are the catalyst for all of this. And I have to ask you right now, because, you know, when we have discussed this, and it's been briefly, we talked about this on a previous podcast, but I'm assuming you're talking about the Bigfoot conference. And am I right in that respect? And before you answer, could you tell us a little bit just about yourself?
58 years old. I had a terrifying encounter in 2016. I've seen them before that, but never had an interactive encounter like that where we were chased. And I want to make it really clear, though, that the first person to ever reach out was Ron, and that was at the 2016, the one that just happened there in February, whatever that one was. I don't remember what it's called. Amy, you were there, and so was the She Squatchers, that one you went to.
2016?
Yeah, well, no, I'm talking about the one you guys just did was the first one I ever went to.
The Sasquatch Summit.
Yeah, the summit. I was real sick from the encounter still. It happened in September, and my wife and I were both still really sick from it, and so I was leaning up against the wall in there because it was standing room only. And Ron walked by, didn't know me from Adam, and put out his hand and shook my hand. And we started to talk, but he got called up on stage. So I've always held you in high regard for that. That one single act of kindness from Ron, you know, it made me never forget him. So, you know, I mean, what I didn't like was I went there hoping that there would be answers, okay? And there was no answers. There was nobody cared to help either, as far as that went.
Okay. Well, Jay, we're going to let you talk actually to some extent about that. But yeah, it was very lucky to be able to get Ron on, because you'd mentioned that before. And but that was probably your positive experience with the conferences and stuff. And the conferences are one aspect of what we're going to be talking about tonight. But I just want people to understand that, Jay, you had a positive experience with Ron, but you're kind of disappointed later on, correct?
Well, yeah, and I also had a positive with Todd too. Spent time at the second Squatch Fest talking to him and his wife and a few other people, just like, you know, just standing in the crowd talking, you know, and that was pretty cool. I thought that some of the guys are really approachable, so I thought that was great. And
oh, okay. Now, for the sake of time, so that people don't go to sleep on us, because I know people have left work. Some people are back in the East, on the East Coast. So we're going to try to make our answers as brief as possible. But I want to very quickly go around our round table here, and very quickly, starting with Amy, could you just talk about your experience with a Bigfoot, you know, maybe a short paragraph, whatever, and just tell us what your experience was, and then we'll go around to the rest of the group.
Sure. Well, mine, you know, I'm not sure if I've experienced Bigfoot. I think so. But what got me interested was in 2012, I saw something from a moving car. It was along a shoreline, and it was about 100 yards away. So that's why I say I'm not positive. I do think so, but I'm not 100% sure. But I watched it just as we crossed the bridge, so I didn't get a lot of time with that initial sighting. But I started learning. I started getting out in the field throughout the years. I've had different vocalizations, possible vocalizations, different experiences like that with rocks being thrown, things like that. And then in 2018, I was at an expedition where myself and another witness saw something very, very large walking away from us through a FLIR. So again, it was in an area where a lot of sightings have occurred. There was a lot of, a story outside of that sighting with things that could have been caused by Sasquatch, but it was through a FLIR. So mine have been limited experiences, but I talked to a lot of people who have seen them more up close and personal than I have.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've had you've had physical evidence. You've had things thrown at you, and Amy, also you're a very serious researcher. I should point out. And as far as our panel goes, I guess if we're going to put you guys on a scale, yours might be more limited than the other ones. So let's go next to Todd, who would be probably next up on the scale. Todd is unique because he was actually in the service, and this is almost a service reported sighting.
Yes, it was April 3rd of 93. It was with combat engineers doing some blasting on some private timberland in the Oregon Coast Range between Seaside and Saddle Mountain, if that means anything to anybody. But it was there that I witnessed 3 of these creatures, in fact, standing in a rock quarry where we had detonated explosives maybe an hour before that. And I was able to watch them for approximately 25 seconds. So it wasn't just kind of something random.
Yep. I think we just lost Todd. All right, well, let's continue on. Todd, I don't...
me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, the wife just chimed in. Hang on a second. I have to start.
You must be late.
Yeah, she called in.
Why don't you put her on hold, Todd, and talk to us?
Well, it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Right.
If he...
Am I back?
Yes.
Yep. Put us on speaker with the wife. Let's see what she's saying to you.
Well, no, she was calling in.
Okay.
She is. I'm here in the driveway at the
Oh, okay.
Chateau de Squatch. Anyway, when she called in, it cut through the Bluetooth there. I apologize. Love live radio, right? So, anyway, where was I? Anyway, I watched them for about 25 seconds before I lost sight of them because we were traveling in a convoy. Mm-hmm. I would just say that in the final analysis, we had 3 other soldiers that came forward and admitted to seeing them, and the same number, same description. And I've been just searching for them ever since. It's been interesting 26 and a half years, but that's my story.
Okay, great.
I would add to that that I've had other encounters with them, none visually, but I've had audible encounters. I've of course found tracks and scat and whatnot. I had one roar at me at a very close range back in '98 at an expedition that Ron was a part of, and as well as Peter Byrne. But encounters come in different forms. Beyond a visual sighting, that's what I would say. But I've gotten close to them at least a half a dozen times.
Wow. Well, what luck Ron is on the podcast. Ron, you're somehow connected like a web to everybody. So it's in the Bigfoot world. So that's great. So Ron, while we're on the subject, thank you again, Todd, he got me Peter's book. his latest book. So I started reading it. It's fantastic. And if Peter hopefully will listen to this podcast, but I just want to say hello, and I'm loving the book, and I can't wait to continue on with it. So next on the list is Ron Morehead. I think everybody pretty much knows about your encounters, but if you want to say a few things.
Well, yeah, for those that don't know, I'm responsible for the Sierra Sounds, which pretty much known for in the 70s when we connected with some type of being that had a Bigfoot, so we want to call them Bigfoot, even though we don't know what they are. Like Amy says, we don't know. I've been on several expeditions since then, but we recorded their vocalizations up there and had them analyzed by universities and by cryptolinguists, and they've all been authenticated and agreed to that they're authentic by a year-long study at the University of Wyoming. So anyway, it's what kind of put me on the board, I guess, for doing these podcasts like this and different things. So I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, well, Ron, you're a great face and a great voice for Bigfoot and for the research that's going on, and your books are fantastic as well. So let's continue on now. So we have I almost forgot, Jay. Let's hear about your encounter. That's going to be one of the most interesting of all.
Well, I was camping up here. I live up here in Cougar, Washington. We moved here after this happened, but up by the horse camp here on Mount St. Helens, up the 84, we found a nice spot. Our company gave us a couple extra days off, so for the holiday weekend in September, and my wife and I went up there, and we found this nice spot with creek right there and all that, and so we pulled in there to check it out, and I could feel darkness. I could feel a sense of dread. We probably shouldn't have done it, but she went ahead. We set up the camp and all. She still had to work, so I went up there. You know, she dropped me off Thursday after we set everything up, and they started probably within 10 minutes after she left. Started with a foot stomp, and I tried to ignore it, and I knew exactly. I knew as soon as it happened what it was, and it was directed at me. And I waited a couple, like 10 minutes, and it happened again. And so it scared me so bad because I knew what it was, and our tent was about 20 or 30 feet away. So I got up, and I first pulled my revolver and just held it in the air and set it down. I pulled my Bowie knife, held it in the air, and set it down, and walked to our tent. And I was scared, and I made a quick video that there was something over there, but after a while, nothing was happening, so I went back over there and sat down again, and I started taking steps. So I got up and I moved everything I had to the tent, and they started this sound like a humming sound, and it went on all night. It was like the June bugs when my wife's from Texas, and we stayed there for a while, and the June bugs come in by the thousands, and it just sounds like it just doesn't stop. And this went on all night until and plus at about 2:30 in the morning, I looked out the tent because I had to go to the bathroom, and I was just terrified. So I looked outside, and there was an orb about the size of a football. It looked like a bubble, like a kid would blow, but with one of those wands that they do that with. And it had a red glow about it. I could see through it, though. It was weird. And then that thing let out at 5:45 in the morning. It let out it worked itself up with a. I won't do the call here because the forest is right there, right behind our motorhome. So, but it was worked itself up, and then it was about a 15 or 16 second scream. It ended with a wah, and then a great sense of calm came after that. But I waited till complete daylight, and then I just had to go to the bathroom so bad that I got up and just said, I'm going to make a fire, and you just got to do what you got to do. So, but the tension was there until about 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, it affected me for right up until probably about 6 months ago. The PTSD finally stopped. My wife's hair was falling out. All kinds of stuff was going on, and that's where I started to become bitter about the conferences. You know, there's friendly people, there's good speakers. You know, that's not. You know, I felt more like I was at the same old television show that I'd been watching.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, Todd, or I'm sorry, Jay. Let's stop for just a second. Todd, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, because you're fading in and out. Jay, I'm sorry.
Well, wife tried to call in again. I just told her.
Oh, okay.
I'm busy. So.
Okay. All right.
Can you see me?
We can see a likeness of you. We're good as long as we can hear you. That's fine. All right. So, Jay, you experienced this basically solitary. Everybody else had the comfort of being with other people, and so you experienced psychological effects from this, and you're just starting to talk about what you experienced at the conferences, but there's a lot of aspects to Bigfoot and et cetera, et cetera. One of them is social, is the aspect of people are out looking for Bigfoot. How do those people interact with each other? And that's what I want to look at today, because this is just a subset of things that I've found since I've been doing this podcast and looking into this, of the way people interact, how this Bigfoot research is done, who is credible and who's not. And so one thing that I did notice that I think I agree with you is that it's a monetary industry. Is that correct? I'm sorry, Jay. Do you see that it's a monetary industry?
I do in a sense, but you have people, real researchers like Todd and like Amy and like Rod. Well, they got it. You're going to have to help support them in some way, buying a book or something like that. It was the rest of it. I felt like I was in a giant flea market at all of them, especially the last one. I went to the Woo one, and the only reason why I went was because Ron presents science with the quantum stuff. So I went to see him. That's all. I didn't care about the rest of it.
Okay. But Jay, your initial wish was you wanted to just have a panel of people that have actually seen Bigfoot. And I think that the reference was that when you go to these conferences, that's not really what you see. Is that kind of correct?
I found that people aren't as friendly as they portray themselves on TV. I felt I sent after my wife and I got chased when we went back a month later and thought that everything was okay. And we got chased by one. Literally, I thought my wife was going to be murdered right in front of my eyes by one of these things. I sent Dr. Meldrum a frantic email because the only thing I knew was he was supposed to be the big expert in this. And then I sent Cliff Brockman because I work with a kid. There was a kid under me at work that told me his dad grew up with him, Clark County Sheriff, and that he knew him. So for that I had to go through 4 or 5 stages on his website, and then I've never heard from them. So I actually told them both off when I met them, because don't advertise. Get a hold of me if you see Bigfoot, which we saw Bigfoot, and then give me an excuse of, well, I'm out 8 months of the year. Okay, that's fine. Then at least contact me and say I can't get to you, type of thing. And so that's where I was very angry and very bitter. I'm not anymore. Yeah. I'm not bitter about that anymore. I just felt like when I was watching the speakers at that first conference, other than Ron, it was listening how, hey, if you want to come up here and be a part of this project, bring a mate or a friend for $700 for a weekend. And I thought I could take you to a place and get you terrified within 30 miles of Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, but nobody cared, and I couldn't get anyone to talk to me. I couldn't get anyone.
Okay.
So Mitchell Townsend was the first one to reach out to me. Well, actually, Wes Germer was. All I did was send him an email and ask, you know, and tell him, and he called me the next day. So I'll always hold him in a high regard myself. I don't agree with everything he believes in or whatever. You don't have to.
Okay.
But I'll always hold him in regard for that. So, you know, I mean, that's where I was. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm not upset. I'm upset with, I talked to someone yesterday that was upset with me because I said, I want people to go to those woo conferences so that you can have the opinion, because people are real rough on those people. But if you go to one, then you have the right to do it. Yeah. And I tell you, other than Ron, I never met so many weird people in my life. I never met so much negative energy. You have people telling you that there's no way, shape, or form these things are going to hurt you in any way. I witnessed the birth of twins, a royal Sasquatch, another woman's got.
Well, Jay, I understand all of that.
But I'm afraid someone's going to get killed by listening to this foolishness.
Well, let's just start with your first point, and that is that you went to a conference looking for. You had psychological issues from your encounter, and you wanted somebody to talk to. And where else would you really be able to find somebody to talk to about a Bigfoot encounter? There's no place. So I would just like to ask somebody from the panel, could you chime in and kind of address that issue?
I see you breathing. It's your turn.
Well, there's so much going through my mind right now. I relate to a lot of what you're saying. I know that even the young lady that I started my project with, it was kind of a fluke thing. She had been reaching out to different Bigfoot groups, and nobody was getting back to her. And finally, I saw that, and I private messaged her, didn't know her, and like here we are today with this Project Zoo book because of that. So I've heard this not just from you, Jay, but from a lot of people that they haven't been able to get in touch with anybody. The biggest thing that popped into my head while you were talking is that maybe at conferences there should be more time given to town halls where people can share their experiences. A lot of times conferences that I've been to, that's kind of I don't want to say an afterthought maybe, but sometimes it's like at the very end tacked on. Maybe there could be like a separate place that people could do that. That's just a thought. I don't know, seeing your emotion and what you went through, maybe that's a thought. It's kind of ironic because my mom and I were just talking before this podcast. I was sitting on the couch and I was fielding a bunch of phone calls and messenger messages and emails. And I know that I'm not half as busy as the other people in this group, but you get a lot of people asking you questions and wanting, to talk about Bigfoot. So sometimes I'm sure Ron and Todd and Matthew, you can relate that sometimes it's just a matter of time, because we all have jobs and everything too. But I think, maybe put our heads together and come up with a solution to that, because I've been at conferences. I have a very good friend. I was I think the second person that he told his encounter to at a conference, and he was very shaken by what he had seen, and I feel for you, and I wish that there was a better solution for people, because you're right, like more so than what anybody has to say at a conference are the people who go there and maybe need some help.
Ron, do you want to? I want to ask Ron a question. You kind of sought Jay out at the conference. So what was it about Jay that you saw? I mean, did you see some sense of being distraught in him, or?
That must have been his hat. I don't know. No, it's just sometimes you go by your heart feeling, what you're supposed to do. I try to respond to anybody that contacts me. I think it's very important for researchers to acknowledge people and just sometimes just listen. That's all you need to do is listen to people, and you can't not learn. You're going to learn something, and what you do with it after that's kind of up to you. And I appreciate the conferences that I'm invited to, that I go to, so that I can reach out with my thoughts. And my 50 years almost of doing this kind of says something, because I've been all over doing this, and it's enlightening, and it's getting more and more enlightening as day goes by. I was just told a day or two ago, and I've been thinking about writing another book, because there's so much more I learned even from the last book. Now I learn so much more, and a lot of that's from researching, from listening to people. And I think the most important thing a researcher, or I should say a presenter, because they're the ones that usually get the question. And Amy's right, we get inundated with questions. We get inundated every day with emails. I do anyway. And I try to respond to all of them. And sometimes I'll just put a quick hi there and then put it in my file to catch the next day or two when I can catch up with it. But you get inundated with people asking you questions at these conferences. You get inundated with email every day. I do, but I'm kind of retired just doing nothing but this. So it's fun in a way, because it's exciting. We're on the edge and the cuff of something very new, and something a step beyond what we've been studying in the past. I think we are in the time of being enlightened with more information, and I'm really happy about that. But we've got to look for it. You only find what you look for, and if you keep looking for things, you'll find the answer, because the only thing that creates a problem is the fact that there's an answer. So a lot of researchers are a little pretentious. I think the biggest thing that presenters have to deal with is their ego. You have to just not think about that and get that out of the way, and try to anyway. But that's what makes us human, is our ego. So anyway, that's my little chime in for that.
Yeah, but it really does sound like you kind of are doing a little bit of social work in what you're doing. Todd, do you want to chime in on this and add anything?
Yeah, I would say people come to these conferences, agendas. I can say for myself, it's partially, and certain people can be a little offish, but I can't tell you how much information that I've received over the years at these conferences, just from people like Jay, that they're looking for somebody to talk to, somebody to express encounters and whatnot. And I'll say this, Jay, I'd love to come up to your area. I'm not that far. I'm probably 45 minutes from Portland, so and I'm very familiar with that cougar area. So I would love to come up anytime. So feel free to get a hold of me offline, and I'd be happy to come up there. There's, I think there's something to be said about, every encounter, every story has a in truth, and I mean, why wouldn't somebody be open to somebody that wants to share that? So, but yeah, again, don't let that turn you off, because my experience at these conferences has been more positive than negative. But like I say, everybody has their own agenda, and don't take it personally.
Yeah, I think those are all fantastic answers. And, I'm sure, especially somebody like Ron, when you're at these conferences, I mean, you really stand out. So you have to make a determination every 5 minutes, is this guy on something, or is he telling the truth? Or is he
I think Ron is more approached by, I'm real good friends with Carrie. I talk to Carrie all the time. She's I consider one of my, that's Ron's beloved. She's one of my spiritual advisors. Oh. And when at Squatch Fest, the first one, when I literally had time and Ron had time, we talked and all that, and I was not in very good shape back then. I quit smoking and all that stuff. And then the following year, neither one of them recognized me. They recognized my wife, but not me, because I looked healthy. And it's been great stopping all that nastiness, that I hate that. But yeah, I've always been Ron is always going to hold a special place with me. And it's just that I was sick, leaning against that wall. I was boiling with anger because everything that was going on I saw on TV, and I wanted somebody to help me, and especially my wife, because her hair was falling out from this, and he just walked by and put out his hand, and we started to talk. But I mean, I'll never forget it, ever. And even if you don't remember that, I do. So that's what's important. And I think if more of you guys at these conferences realize that people are paying attention to you, even if you're going to go to the bathroom or something like that, know that people are watching and paying attention, wanting to know if they can trust you. And Ron's very trustable. And I feel that with Todd, he's so no nonsense. That's what I liked about him. Very no nonsense about what he does. Yeah. And so these are people I trust in this. Mm-hmm. And Amy, me and her been friends for a while on Facebook, but we chat now and then too also. And I cherish that, because I think Amy's one of those 1 in a million that wants to get something done. I personally don't give a crap about all the prove this, prove that. I mean, I saw one. So if I saw what I saw, I know what I know. Then the powers that be know. So I don't research anymore. If you see something and you need me to help you, I'll go and help you. Okay. That's what I'm here for, because I will help you. So that's where I'm at. Everybody knows they're there. So, that's where I'm at with that.
And we all need help.
Yeah. Yeah. If you see one, it still bothers you a little bit, even if the first encounter where the female was walking down, I was not afraid or anything. It was the following month when we got chased by the alpha male, and he had over a 20-inch footprint. So that thing was so massive, and it moved like smoke. Yeah. It's just like a smoke. Yeah. And but it was tearing up everything as it was going, but it was almost unseeable. Yeah. And that was terrifying. How do you deal with that in your mind? Even though I've always known they've been there, because I've seen them coon hunting and things like that. Places like that, I've seen them, but never that close. Mm. And that just was terrifying. But I know I made a stupid mistake, and that was I did the same call that thing did the month previous when I was stuck in that tent all night. Yeah. I did that same call back. And when my wife and I went up there to have dinner and bring them food.
And you're out marking your territory. I did that call
aggressively, and it came after us. So I think that's foolish, because I don't know what they said to me. He was obviously pissed. Mm-hmm. So I was stupid enough to do that a month later, the exact same call, and I did it really loud. And he's like, okay. So yeah, that's that. I just don't do the calling. I don't do none of that shit you see on TV. I don't do none of that stuff.
Okay. Well, let's just before we finish, let's go back to the conference for a little bit, because the first time I talked to you, Jay, I had not been to the Sasquatch Summit. And so I hadn't experienced anything, and now that I have experienced it, I would say that I understand what you're saying. There's not a psychiatrist on staff there. There's nobody there to give you hypnosis like they have in the UFO community if you've had an encounter. So it really looks like it looks like there's a lot of selling. A lot of selling going on, and everything just seems to be more towards the commercial aspect of it. What do you have to say about that?
Like I said, there are some people like Amy that she's a school teacher, so if she's really serious about what she's doing, if she's got a way of selling herself that you want to contribute something, that's one thing. But and the books.
I'm sure you mean Amy selling books or something, not actually selling herself.
No.
I don't think we can promote that kind of activity on this podcast.
Like,
we cleared that up.
I bought both of Ron's books and bought them personally from him, and that's just because I want those. And I've read them. I've read both of them multiple times, Ron, by the way, and I've lent them out too. Sorry that you're not going to get rich because I lent them out.
It's him. He's the one.
I'll tell you something. They say that you can't get rich in the Bigfoot field, or no, there's no money in the Bigfoot. Yes, there is. There's big money because I've spent it. Okay, so but yeah, I think that if there's certain people like David Politis, when I met him, I bought his first book, and that was at that first summit, and we went there dead broke. I mean, I literally was using change to buy that book. Mm-hmm. You know, so
well, all right.
That's. I'm just saying that I think it's the at the second Squatch Fest there was a table selling bandanas for $20, and they said if you run into Bob Gimlin, this is in honor of him, he'll sign it.
Wow.
Okay, now that's the kind of fraudulent stuff I'm talking about. That kind of crap. People who are researchers claim to be researchers, and then you find out the following year that they hoaxed the whole thing the whole time. That upset the crap out of me with one of those researchers that I'm not going to mention. Okay. You know who I'm talking about.
Okay. But I want to go through our panel very quickly, and I think we've left Todd's sitting out by himself for a while. Todd, do you have books to sell at the conferences?
No.
No,
I don't sell merchandise. Hope to write a book soon, but I can tell you that with few exceptions, most of us have spent far more on research than we'll ever get back.
That's right.
I'm talking tens of thousands over the years. Mm-hmm. But I'm there because I'm interested in what's going on, and I want to meet new people, and but I don't peddle anything myself, and I don't have anything against people who do. That's entirely up to the buyer whether they want to get involved with that.
Okay, and so
listen, can I say something? I would like to thank Todd for his service, and also I've seen you, Todd, recruiting at some of these, and thank you for that too. Keep America safe. I appreciate that.
Yep, thank you, Todd.
You. It's my honor.
Yep. I was going to give Todd a hard time because he missed our last planning meeting for our joint venture. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I was just going to remind him it's just not a weekend deal, but we'll talk about that later, Todd. All right. So back to what is going on at these Bigfoot conventions, Ron. Jay just mentioned and Todd just mentioned the fact that, there are people selling stuff, but Ron, you're actually disseminating research. Is that correct?
Well, I hope to. That's my intention. That's my goal. That's my passion for life now. Mm-hmm. Just getting the information that I think I know after close to 50 years of researching when I first encountered this family of them. And it's just, the conferences are enlightening to me because I do get to hear a lot of other people. And I sell my books there, which is how I kind of semi-break even. You want to sell enough of them to maybe make enough to cover the ones you gave away.
Yeah.
Some people can't afford them. I just give them one, So it's just that way. And I wrote the books not so I could make money on them because, again, there's no money in this field. I spent a lot of money just creating my first 2 CDs. And I spent a lot of money traveling all over. I used to have my own airplanes, and I would fly from one conference to another with Al Berry, the investigative reporter that went in. And we used to give her information at these places. And You're right. One time I went to this place, and Al Berry and I gave her a talk about the sounds and let people hear them and all that, and found out later on that they was being charged $700 to come and listen to us. And I flew my plane up there. We spent my money on staying there and all that stuff, and it just I thought, wow, and I didn't even get my gas money off of this thing. I mean, it didn't bother me so much because I used to make a lot of money, so that was okay, and I could appreciate the lifestyle that I've had, the means to do some of these things into South America and study this phenomena all the way up into Northern America. Mm-hmm. So conference-wise, I'll keep going to them, but I notice occasionally ones I think I should have been invited to, I'm not invited to anymore. Maybe that's because they think I'm off in right field here with this quantum physics theory. But it's more than a theory. Quantum physics is a science, and I got involved in that, trying to answer the enigmas associated with some of the events that we ran into in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California years ago. And as recently as 2016, Carrie and I were up there, and my beloved, there you go, and we saw this elongated light going by us at the tent just before we went to sleep, and it had open tent, and we was at the 8 miles in the wilderness up there. Nobody else, of course, somebody else wouldn't have mattered because they couldn't have made this happen. Whatever it was an intelligent, elongated light going through the trees. We watched it for several seconds before it just dissipated out of sight, and that's something how do you explain that? What is it? What's going on? There's things going on. This is what I try to encourage. And by the way, I just got involved in the MUFON group because I'm speaking at those conferences now. I spoke at 2 in California this last year, and I'll speak at another one actually this 2 weeks from now. But I got involved in that, and because I think now that our government has kind of semi-acknowledged that there's UFOs out there, I believe that there's somebody got to be flying those things, and it's either reverse modification or reverse engineering on something that we've had, which would have been of alien components maybe. So whatever's going on, there's more going on than what meets our eyes, and we live in such a three-dimensional environment that just and I'm just trying to get people to understand there's more going on and open their minds, because so many researchers seem to have a closed field, parameters that they have to stay in. Right. But people want to call it the woo, paranormal, the whatever, but I call it quantum physics. You get into quantum physics, you find out just how that chimes into what a lot of religions will call spirituality, and it's pretty much synonymous as far as I'm concerned. You had Tesla, Einstein, these different people studying this for years and years, yet you got, that's called modern science, yet you got these professors supposedly that's staying in nothing but Newtonian physics, which supposedly just covers what's material and physical, measurable and predictable. Well, quantum physics says, no, that's not how everything works. You got to get out of that. And that it takes us into another realm of thinking, and that's what I encourage people to do, is just give it a chance and think about it and realize that it's a acknowledged science by physicists all over the world. Yeah. So to ignore that in our research, I think, is not smart.
Yeah. Well, when we're talking about the functionality of the Bigfoot conference, we've pretty much determined there is no other place you're going to go to be able to talk to people about Bigfoot. And Ron, do you feel that you sell more books, that you put out more information because of the conferences, or do you do fine just with the internet and whatever else you do?
No, I like the conferences. I do sell more books there because when people hear my thoughts behind it, I can explain how it goes and not just bam, bam, we're in the woo now, get out of here. Yeah. No, I try to explain it in layman's terms and go right through it. I'm not a physicist, but I have studied this a lot, and I kind of know how it looks.
You present yourself very nicely at those, though, Ron. To me, it's not woo. The only reason why I went was to hear you speak, because you brought science to a woo conference, in my opinion. You brought science there, and it makes sense to me, because I can't explain why I couldn't see this thing that was chasing us.
We see within certain parameters. Right. Light has a frequency. Everything is frequency, energy, and vibration, according to Tesla, and according to physicists. So if everything's energy, frequency, and vibration at a most minute level, you got to understand there could be things that you're not seeing because we only see within the light's parameters. There's so much more going on. You can't see radio waves, or you can't see a lot of waves that are out there, but they're there. Right. So why not give this a chance and try to understand it just a little bit, and not kick somebody out, call them the woo-wooer, when really you're just trying to explain what Tesla tried to explain 100 years ago.
Yeah.
At least I'm trying my best. I'm not on the same level that he is by any means.
Well, I would just like to add, I've known Ron for well over 20 years, and we've worked together both in and out of the field, and I can attest to his credibility and his seriousness in this field, and I was a little taken back when he was starting out with this quantum stuff, but like Jay says, at least he's putting science behind things we don't understand, and instead of just jumping out there with paranormal ideas, So I totally respect him for that, and nobody's got it right yet, so why not entertain some new theories?
Yeah, but you're a fine example. You and Amy are fine examples because you're diametrically opposed to, and I'm not trying to start a fight or anything, but you guys are both ape people. You're primate people. And Ron is saying primate, but something more. So
I've never had a problem with anything like that. I was told I should have a problem with something like that, but I don't listen to what I'm told half the time. So I think that, Adam Davies says a lot of the time about how if you were back like in the 1500s and you showed somebody a lighter, they would think you were magic. I really believe what you're saying, Ron, is that sometimes science hasn't caught up to what's happening. We just can't explain it yet. So to me, woo and science could very well connect exactly like how you're saying. I don't know if that's what's going on. I just am fascinated by the primate part of everything. But I absolutely don't think that I have to be, the one that's all correct or anything. I love hearing different viewpoints, and I think it's really important. That's gotten me, I love the conferences. I have to say, I loved Sasquatch Summit. It was one of my favorite conferences I've ever been to. I think all conference organizers could listen to what Jay is saying and maybe have a better place or people in on board to listen to people who came there just to be heard, but I really loved that conference, and I learned a lot. Every time I speak at a conference, my goal is not to say like, look at me, but I hope to share my work with Project Zubuk, and every single conference I've ever spoken at, I've had another scientist, at least one more scientist that's come on board and been interested in the phenomenon of Bigfoot research. So that's why I do it. And I've started to become more, I've always loved most Bigfoot conferences. Some are better than others. I think you have some that are more of a big frat party, and others I think that are more serious. And we all want to have fun though, right? But I started doing more things like wildlife shows, fisherman shows, outdoor shows, things like that. And I have found that every time I've been blessed, I say, to be asked to go to one of those, I get more witnesses there than anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I'll be crawling around on the floor, taping down the carpet for my booth, and hunters will come up to me telling me their stories, and that's where I get most of my reports now. So I think there's like a wider world out there. No matter what Bigfoot is, there's a wider world of people to reach. And I've talked to people like Jay who've been really affected by what they've seen. You cannot help but to believe them, like physically, emotionally upset. And so I hope that we'll all, follow Ron's lead, Todd's lead, and just reach out to people and realize that, we all are interested in Bigfoot. We all love the topic, but people, I feel, are more important.
It's amazing that where you find leads, like you mentioned, something completely unrelated, a sportsman show or what have you. But I can't tell you how many times I'd be having a casual conversation in a public venue, and people walk up to me and just say, "Were you just talking about Bigfoot?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm just like waiting for the next sentence is either going to be, you're probably going to think I'm crazy, or you know who you need to talk to. Sorry about my dog here. I'm going to.
Well, he keyed into Bigfoot.
I think we can agree. I think anyway that there's more professional people, even PhDs, that are getting on board with considering there's more going on than in their parameters that they've been disciplined in. And we all know who I'm talking about here, but you've been disciplined from Newtonian physics since you was in grade school on how things work. And when you're trained in that, you go to college for that, you get your PhD in that, and your tenure's conditioned on that, on staying within those parameters. You're going to stay within those parameters. And I respect them and their studies, but still, I think a lot of them are coming around to thinking, well, maybe there is more to them, because my question to them is, well, is there more to us than just flesh and blood? Because these things are flesh and blood when they're within our three-dimensional environment. And I do believe, and I'm getting into the MUFON thing now, but they're multidimensional, and that means the matter, somehow they change their matter via energy into energy. Just change, somehow they can go back and forth. So they're going out of our parameters of light, let's put it that way. So we don't perceive them. They're still there. And it's going from the third to the fifth. Right? Somewhere in the fourth dimension where light is where we're seeing them occasionally cloaked, or whatever you call it. But there's where I get off in the woo to some people. But there's more going on, and I think we just need to realize that. I hope to. That's one of my challenges anyway, is to get people to realize that it takes, like Dr. Edgar Mitchell said, it takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. Now, that's a good statement, I think. Love your dog, Todd.
I want to throw in there.
But let's take both of those. All I'm doing is I try to encourage academia and also researchers to take that statement seriously. This man wasn't he wasn't a nobody. He was our astronaut, and he saw some things that probably we wish we could have saw. But it's just quantum science and classical science needs to be combined to have clear perception, because we see what we see, but realize there's more that we don't see.
Okay.
I guys were a lot at work. There's an engineer that works down there that he tells me, Dave, this just wouldn't work. This just wouldn't work. You can't tell me there's Bigfoot out there. I'm an engineer. Convince me. And all I tell him is, look, if I could go back in time and erase this and never see this shit ever, that's what I want to do. That's what I want. I said, I'm gaining nothing by telling you that this happened to me. And it's always these arrogant engineers, yet I have another friend who's an engineer that worked for NASA who's seen them. I have a friend I grew up with who is a clinical psychologist whose wife's family deals with them on a regular basis on the Washington coast up close to the Olympic Mountains, somewhere up there in that coastline up there.
That's where I'm at, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, right over when we were at the conference, we were up at Claylock, and they said there was some activity up in, I think it was up on the Hoe, but they said there had been some recent activity on just right between on the Hoe on the coast side of it. So Amy was up there too, I think.
Yeah, I was up there. I actually met a guy on the shuttle from the airport to my hotel, or maybe it was backwards. That was talking about finding nests on the Hoe reservation. So you just never know who you're going to meet and what you're going to find out. I just want to throw in there that if any of you ever want to come, I know it's a long way from all of you, but it reminded me of what we're talking about. With Todd and Diane's blessing, we kind of created, my research partner Tina Sams and I created our own little ode to Beachfoot in Ohio called Creekfoot. And what our dream was for that was that people could come to this, we don't call it a conference, it's more like a family reunion of researchers or enthusiasts. And no matter what you believe, like, we wanted people to feel comfortable coming there and not that they wouldn't be made fun of. Because I truly think that none of us have an upper hand on what we're looking at. And if we all would come together, then maybe we get somewhere. So we have, I lovingly call my woo friends. I don't like that term, but if you want to say that, and then you have straight primate people or some people that are in between. So come on out sometime.
Well, great, Amy. Thanks for the invitation. I'm sure a lot of people will take you up on that. But you guys, we're running out of time here, and I've still got a few things that I'd like to talk about. Now, there are a number of, I guess I'd say, personalities, individuals, people who do different things within the Bigfoot community. And so very quickly, I'm going to run these by you, and you chime in if you like to. The question is there a certain class of person that shows up at these conventions or is involved with the Bigfoot question that shouldn't be involved? And the first one is the hobbyist. Should the hobbyist be involved out there looking for Bigfoot?
Why not?
It's all about motive, their motive. I think anybody can look for Bigfoot. I think anybody should if they're interested in it, because they're never going to find out anything if they don't look for something. Okay. And if they're just stuck there, So, yes, I think yes to all that.
There's, Bigfoot research comes in a lot of different forms. From armchair researchers that do their just online information, and
they're the nastiest of all of them.
right. And there's those that actually get out in the field and put up game cameras, put up sensors, different types of things, tried different things. And in that vein, you have people who are investigators, and you have people who are put on expeditions. It just depends on how much you want to get involved. And I don't think there's any specific level. In my case, I fell into it by chance. I wasn't even looking for them. When I saw what I saw, it changed my life. It was an epiphany, and so I've made it my personal quest. I don't have a problem with somebody who just wants to be a hobbyist, if you will. It doesn't hurt. It can only add to the discussion.
Okay,
Amy? You never know what they'll find. I always say, like, if we're out there, I always think scientists should take a look at us and what we're doing, because I've said this before. We are out in the forests. We might never be able to prove Bigfoot, but maybe we'll find the Birch beetle or something like that. Maybe we'll find a new butterfly or a new plant. So I think all of it's valuable, and you never know who's going to find something.
Okay.
Why not? And it's fun. It should be fun.
Okay. Yes. Next on the list,
I think you should. I think you should go out, and even if you're a novelist, you got to start somewhere. But I think that for me, every time we've had an experience, we weren't looking, and so I stopped looking, because it seems like they want you to see them or want to interact with you. They're going to do it. You're not going to walk up on one of these things. But I would like to just add that at the conferences, the best people to meet are the people on the floor. They're there for the same reason. And then you start interacting with them and finding out what they've gone through and what they've seen. That's what I liked about the conferences, especially Squatch Fest. To me, that felt it was more on a personal level. It just grew too fast. And
okay.
I think a better question really is on the opposite end of the scale. Is it important that science gets involved and mainstream science steps up and gives it a serious look? And those people are few and far between. But there are those like Jeff Meldrum and Dr. Bindernagel, Grover, how am I thinking? Grover Krantz. You know, some of these guys are gone now, but I mean, I think the problem on that end of the scale is that they're too concerned about their reputations.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, I want to, Todd, I'm gonna have to kind of cut you off there because I have the academics as part of this list, but I want to go back to, we've done the hobbyist, and the hobbyist seems to be okay with everybody. What about the tour guide? What about somebody who's taking people out, making money, and showing people how to or where to find Bigfoot? Is that good or bad? You want to start with that, Ron?
Well, I don't think it can be bad unless they can't afford it. So, and who they're going with and what the agenda is if it's really genuinely to make money or to help these people learn more. Mm-hmm. If they're genuinely wanting to help people learn more, I totally agree with it because it's all about learning more, I think, for all of us. And, I don't have a question with that. So it's okay for me if they do that. I used to come down on Matt Moneymaker a little bit, not to mention numbers, but he's an entrepreneur. He saw the opening there and he did it, but he still got a lively interest in this subject. Mm-hmm. And it's all about learning more. So if his people are taking people out to learn more, and that's their motive, not just to make a buck on it, I think it's okay.
So Moneymaker is not just a clever name.
Well, I thought it was at the beginning.
Yes, Todd?
I do think there are those who exploit the subject and give it a bad name. I won't mention names, but that they may have ulterior motives. And Ron's right. It really depends on the motive of the individual running whatever sort of program they are. And if somebody wants to spend their hard-earned money to do what they could do on their own, then that's on them. But there are some out there legitimate. The Olympic Project is a great example. I always learn something when we go up there. They teach not only how to make casts properly, how to pour casts properly, but how to use different types of equipment, everything up to including wilderness survival. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. And so that's a particular group that I would say has very unselfish motives in what they do. Okay. Again, nobody's going to get rich at this stuff.
Okay, I guess that leads to Amy.
I think I agree a lot with what Ron and Todd said. As long as nobody is hoaxing, like if they're not promising something that they can't come up with, we're going to take you out and you're going to see a Bigfoot, no, I wouldn't agree with that. But I don't have a problem with people making money doing what they love to do. If somebody can make some money being a researcher or writing a book or whatever, then more power to them if they are giving people a legitimate product, so I do not have a problem with that at all. I do have a problem if people are promising too much or, but we have free will what we want to spend our money on, right? I mean, I have a Bigfoot bobblehead somewhere, so, I like it. So I'll buy it from somebody. I like stuff like that. So as long as nobody is, as long as nobody is hoaxing or promising too much, I don't have a problem with something like that. I think it's fun.
Okay. We're actually close to an hour or maybe a little bit over. So let's just go quickly. What about the guy or gal who says, I need to shoot a Bigfoot in order to prove it exists? Should these people be involved with the Bigfoot community?
Can I speak? Go ahead, Ron.
Oh, they are involved, whether we like it or not. And I think they're on a fool's journey there because it's going to be pretty unique if they see one, and second unique if they get to shoot at one. It's just, why kill something because you don't understand it? And why kill it because you think it's a monster? There's good ones and there's bad ones. I think there's different types because I do believe in alien intervention into our genomes here, animals and people. and primates especially, that's what I think these probably are, as a hybrid. But for people to go out and want to shoot one just to prove that they exist, I'm not in that camp at all.
I would say what's important to understand is that it's open season right now. And that's why the American Primate Conservancy is trying to establish some laws. That's something I touched upon at the last conference. It's been tried before. In some cases, it's actually been successful. Skamania County comes to mind. If it can be done there, it can be done elsewhere. But we are kind of looking at a different tact on that, and that's dealing with Native American tribes, reservations, places where they make their own laws regarding natural resources in general, but hunting and all that as well. And if we can get some Native Americans, First Nations people to sign on to that, that's a plus. But I think it will spread, and it'll make it a little easier argument to make to non-natives if these groups get involved. But what's kind of critical to that is getting the recognition. And if we don't get some sort of evidence of their existence, it's going to be a very difficult argument to get laws put in place. But starting with Native Americans, where this has been part of their culture for thousands of years, I think it's a good place to start. Personally, I wouldn't want to shoot one unless, for some reason, my life or somebody else's life were in danger. And I think it would be kind of a sad day. But that's my take on it.
Okay. Amy?
I don't think we should shoot them. I mean, I guess I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I always think my dream is to find one that died peacefully in its sleep, I guess. But no, I wouldn't agree with that at all.
Well, I'm not even saying should we shoot them, or I'm saying should people who think that, and I don't know if there's much thinking involved, but should they even be involved in anything to do with Bigfoot?
So there's not much we can do about it.
Yeah, I guess so. But, even if they, I guess I have to say this, even if they shot one, the government would take it and say, what, you shot what? So, okay.
Wait. Now look, what I saw, that female looked like a woman to me, a big woman with hair, covered in hair. There's no way. Now, I was so angry when we got chased that my wife bought me a shotgun because I was going to go up and kill that son of a bitch. But something happened in me before and after that, because I realized they had a child up there because I saw the child. So they were simply protecting what is theirs. Mm-hmm. And I realized, and I watched family interaction. And so I am extremely against killing one of these things. And I saw, Ron, you were used without your knowledge on that show, Killing Bigfoot. And I actually asked Carrie, I was like, Ron was a part of that? And she said, no, he was not. Uh-huh. You remember that when they had you were speaking at that conference and they just blew up?
Yeah, I was in Hanobi. That was in Hanobi, Oklahoma, and at a conference they came in and presented what they had, and they got kind of booed out. But their theory was, well, these things are hurting dogs, they're hurting people, they're hurting animals, they're hurting things. So let's shoot one and prove their existence. Well, that show didn't last very long, but nope. I didn't know they included me in anything like that. So it's okay. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't change what I've got and what I think and how I feel.
All right. So
I'll give you a little inside baseball on that, because I spoke just yesterday with the producer of that show, and he himself was against them naming that. He kind of gave me the story about the back scene stuff, and that a lot of times the producers kind of get creative control on your shows or projects you do, and but I know for a fact that Peter, this gentleman that actually directed that show, he did not like that title whatsoever. He was overridden.
All right, Jay, I'm going to have you jump in here because that brings up. I have a couple more of categories I'd like to throw at you, but Jay, the TV people, the people who make a living, who make a very good living off of Bigfoot. You've seen Bigfoot; they haven't. Do you think that they, have the right to present and to talk as if they're an expert in the field?
I've never actually heard any of them talk as though they're an expert. Cliff does a little bit, but I've always seen people just kind of presenting theories, things like damage in the earth. That's why this print that was like this is the same as this, which I don't buy that. But the only people I've ever seen speak matter of fact was at that WOO conference. I mean, absolute matter of fact. So I just thought, oh my God,
Okay. Okay, because I would think that, there's people out there doing this for nothing. And there's people that are actually producing evidence like Amy. And, Ron's getting a little bit back for his time.
I sent you a footprint my boss took up there in April on Mount Adams.
Yeah. But you're not rich. You're not driving around in that Maserati, are you?
No.
So. Okay.
I've been approached by several production companies over a period of time, and I ended up breaking it off with them because they have the money involved, so they're going to have to say over it. That's just the bottom line. Whoever's got the money in it's going to have to say so over it. And they put the money in producing a sizzle reel or whatever production program. So what you see in this is Hollywood, and I heard Cliff and Bobo talk about that myself. It's all Hollywood. It's what they think the demographic's going to want. And when I can't put my own influence, I'm just going to do my own here pretty soon and pay for it myself and get that out of the way. I can say what I want to do, introduce it the way I want to, and then we'll try to sell it to a network or something, because I think the information that I present is worth getting out, and more people are starting to hook into it, and it's going over very well. And that's why I went into the MUFON group, because not just the MUFON, but I'm combining the two. Because I think whatever we dealt with up there, they had a Bigfoot, that's for sure. They had a big voice, that's for sure. But what were they really? What was the language they were speaking? It's something we can't translate. We transcribe the language out of it to the cryptolinguist, but we can't translate it. I want to know what they were actually saying.
Yeah,
and still anomalies go on up there, and it's just a unique place for that to happen.
Yeah.
I used to tell people it's not the place, it's who you are, and it could be both,
I think that after 9 seasons or so of something called Finding Bigfoot, I don't think it should have went past maybe 3 seasons, because or changed the title. I mean, the only thing positive for me that came out of that was you got people talking about it. You got people, instead of standing out in the corner having a cup of coffee, whispering about it, people talk about it now. So that was great. But, other than that, I haven't had any of those guys ever return, which I don't care now. I've talked to Todd. I've talked to Ron and Carrie and a few other people, and so I'm good with that. I think that they're doing better as time goes on, because other than watching someone on stage, I've interacted and had conversation with Todd. I've had conversation with Ron, and that's important. As far as that making money thing, look, if the networks are paying, well, it doesn't matter what I think. If you're going to go sell your soul to the devil for nothing, then fine.
Well, I think that's what broke me off here just recently with another production company, is because they were going to have control over it. And I had that happen to me in 2014. They did a sizzle reel, they put it out everywhere, and they weren't saying what I wanted to say. They cut that out. It ended up on the editing room floor.
Wow.
So they're in it for the money. They're in it for the demographics, and that's why Finding Bigfoot made it so well, because the people liked it, and they did bring attention to it, just like you say, and that was the good part about it. But most people believe that there's more to it than going out and beating on a tree or screaming in the middle of the night, and I certainly am one of those. I know there's more to it than that, and there's better ways to get in touch with these things if they want to in touch with you. So Anyway, that's what I have to say about that. So there.
Yeah. Well, Ron, I want to have you back on another podcast because, after our first one, talking about what happened at the camp, those things were trying to tell him something. And they were, I don't want to, say anything bad, but I think they didn't think very much of you guys because you were just mimicking them. But I think maybe they were trying to talk to you and say, we want something. So I'll have to have you back on.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, and I also we need to talk about this, the UFO connection as well. All right, you guys, I know we're running a little bit over. I just want to do two more things. The last category I want to talk about is the professor, and I'm sorry, Amy, if I left you out. I see some of the jokes you're making over there on the sites. I don't think they're not appreciated. But anyway, what about academia? Now, I went to that conference. I bought Meldrum's book, $20. I said, do my podcast. He said, here's my card. Send me an email. Did you do my podcast? No. I'm out $20. I'm not sure if I'll read his book.
You'll get the knowledge, though.
But what's that?
I said, you'll get the knowledge if you read it. I love
All right.
Dr. Meldrum. I have to stand up for him because he is just so busy.
Yeah.
He really is. So I'm sure he would really like to do it if he could.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
I disagree. I disagree.
I like him.
Yeah.
I find him arrogant.
I don't.
I'll just say follow the money.
Yep, follow the money, baby.
Well,
Follow
all right.
the money.
But let's leave him out. I mean, personally out of it.
You
but
brought
I'm
him
just
up.
talking.
You
Yeah,
brought
but
him
let's
up.
talk about academics, not like Grover Krantz or even Dr. Meldrum, but all academics are going to say it doesn't exist. So why
Dr.
should they?
Bendernagel did not. Dr. Bendernagel was probably the finest human being. He is probably the most precious gift ever given to us in this field.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was taken away. And that was a tragedy to me. He was wonderful. He changed his mind at one point even, and you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And so he did. So, I will always hold him as in extreme high regard.
Yeah.
I would say to what you were saying is what's important in what we're trying to do, what I've tried to do, what Project Zoobook and Share, which is another organization that is we can't expect to bring science down to our level. Rather, we need to bring up our standards to their level if we're going to get their attention at all. And so what we're trying to do is figure out, put together some standard operating procedures to put together ways to document, to write scientific papers to the standards that you could essentially remove the word Bigfoot and put in reptile or what have you, and it will still read well, But it's got to be to scientific standards, and until we get to that point, it's tough to get them involved.
Or to get science to expand the parameters a little bit.
Right.
That's my motive right there. Try to get them to get out of their box, because they are within certain disciplines, Todd, and we both know that, and they won't get out of that because that's where their money is. That's how their livelihood is made. So I'm not sure if we have to bring our standards up to theirs, or if they should bring their standards up to what some of us are saying.
Well, we need to bridge that gap.
Yeah, we do.
The scientists and Project Zoobook, and Todd knows because he's on a lot of the phone calls, we do and stuff that most, if not all, Todd, I think you would agree, of the scientists that we've talked to have really been fascinated and very open-minded.
In private.
Yeah, not officially.
But they would lose their jobs. It's not always, it's like what I say, not some of them are worried about that. It's not that they are not open-minded and that they don't believe that this could be a possibility, but maybe their zoo boards are not open-minded and they don't want to, go work in the animal petting zoo instead of with the great apes. So you have to, not every scientist has tenure and can say whatever they want to say. So I have some mercy on that, or a lot of mercy on that. But what I would like to do with Zoobook And I know we're not the only. People are always like, oh, there have been other scientists. Well, I know that, and there's other scientists looking into this too. This is just how I'm looking at it, and the people I'm looking at it with. But they, if we can present good evidence and maybe, Todd, what you were saying about bringing it up to their level, maybe putting it in their language might be, for me, a better way to say that. What we're looking at here, there are a lot. I'm to the last scientists we've talked to, and there have been a lot, and that are working with us in Project Zoo Book. They've all said, we had no idea there was so much going on. We had no idea there were so many witnesses or so much footprint evidence or so much of this or that. They really had no idea. And so if you can get people that will talk to them, and that they find fascinating, or however you want to say it, then that's how we get them involved. I think it's important.
Well, Amy, you're a certified bona fide teacher, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Well, and that's where you become very important to us. All of us involved in this, if we need you and we need people like you involved in this, because you're showing that as a teacher, you're just as important as Dr. Meldrum or Dr. Bendernagel or any of those people. We need your type of people involved in this. And you go at it with such a gusto that I've been impressed with you since the first time I've ever met you.
Yes. So. Yeah, and one of the things I like to highlight on this show is the fact there's a lot of professional women getting into the search for Bigfoot. So that's absolutely going out in the woods and all that. So that's great.
The one that keeps calling Todd.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
I love Diane. She's a hero of mine.
Diane's cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Tell her we said so too, Todd.
Yep.
Okay.
You guys, I think we ran out of time a little bit ago. I think Ron's wife is waiting for him. I see Ron making signals, so I'm gonna rope this off really quickly. I want to say give special thanks to Ron for being on the show. Check out his books, Voices from the Wilderness and Quantum Bigfoot. And Amy Boo has to get back to school in the morning to teach those kids. And Jay Birch, you're going to take a bow. Get it? Take a bow. And he's got to finish off. He's got to finish off his favorite beverage, which is probably hemlock, and get to bed. And Todd is going to be getting ready for our next podcast. We're doing a joint project, Ron. I don't know if you know this, or Amy, but we have got the UFO team. We've got Todd's Primate Conservancy, and we have the North American Dogman Project, all going out looking for Bigfoot in a joint project sometime this summer. So we'll be planning that.
Can I do something real quick, guys?
You sure
can. All of you involved. I have a friend in Oklahoma. She's 11 years old. There's something tragic going on in her life, but she just had her birthday. And when she was asked to blow out her candles and make the wish, the tears were flowing down her eyes, and she blew out the candle. And the wish is very important. So if you guys would just... Her name is Bailey, and I'd like to wish her a happy 11th birthday, and I hope that her birthday wish comes true.
All right, Bailey, happy birthday.
Bailey.
Happy birthday, Bailey.
Happy birthday, Bailey.
I have to get a follow-up and see if it came true or not.
Yeah, some information.
No, it's very serious. So
Is she interested in Bigfoot?
Yes, she is. In fact, I'm very good friends with her grandma.
So maybe what you can do is offline.
Give us their information.
Send us an email with her name and address, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, but we'd be happy to send her some Bigfoot-related things that would probably make her birthday even more special.
Yes,
sure.
I'll send her Meldrum's book.
I tell you what, think what you want with Dr. Meldrum, but I love that book. I've read that book. It's very intelligently written.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
he's
It's just
good,
that if you...
he's got very good qualities about him, Dr.
Yes,
Bill.
yes.
I
He spelled my name wrong, but
I spoke with him and Dr. Benedigal and Meldrum in Moscow Museum a few years back, and they took us in there and into Siberia, and I got to know them both pretty well. I roomed with Jeff, and I brought up quantum physics at that point. That was 2011, I think, and he said, "Don't even talk to me about quantum physics because he has to stay right where he's at." And when those Russians get totally pissed at you if you don't have vodka to drink or something, and he wouldn't drink because he's totally not into that. And now John was a different story. I love John.
This is what you want to get.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's really good. It's really good.
Anyway, I appreciate all the professionals that are involved in this. I just wish they would expand the parameters a little bit. That's all, and consider what I'm saying, because I've encountered them. They haven't. I've been by those things. I've got the. And the thing is, there's other guys that were with me that can all be cooperated by intelligent men. They're not all dummies. Of course, some of them are dead now, but we're all dying, by the way. I thought I'd tell you that in case you didn't know.
It makes you wonder why people want to mess with you when you're suffering. What the hell did I have to gain other than looking for help? And people going, "You're a liar."
Well, they won't consider. They just can't, because they lose credibility in their academic circle, and I think I understand that. So, but the Russians are on top of this stuff.
Yeah.
I know them, and they're right on top of it. They know where I'm at. They work with that. Most of them do anyway. So anyway.
Well, they were having sex with a Bigfoot, so I'd say they're on top of it, literally.
Well, they did have reports of that woman.
That was Russian supermodel.
All right. Now, your Birch,
Russian supermodel.
Birch, your comments are not going to be popular.
He's going to cut those. They're going to end up on that bedroom floor.
Ron, are you colluding with the Russians?
Yeah, he is. All right, you guys, I'm gonna have to cut you loose. So again, I have to thank everybody for spending the time to do this podcast, and especially Ron. Get Ron's books. I'll leave the links in the description on YouTube. This is available on podcast as well as YouTube video. So for Amy Boo, Jay Burch, Ron Morehead, and Todd Neiss, this is Matthew Hines for Encounters USA. If you're out looking for Bigfoot or aliens or Dogman, remember, watch your back. Thanks for joining us on Encounters USA. Remember, if you have comments, please leave them in the comments section on YouTube and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell while you're at it. Don't forget, if you'd like to be a guest on Encounters USA, just send us an email at encountersusa1@gmail.com and just put podcast guest in the subject line. Now, please remember that all of the guests' opinions on Encounters USA are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the podcast host nor the podcast sponsors. So thank you, and don't forget, when you're out in the woods looking for aliens, Bigfoot, or Dogman, always watch your back.